Buongiorno ragazzi. Today we're going to talk a little about the plural of nouns and of articles. Cominciamo con un breve proverbio. Non rimandare a domani quello che puoi fare oggi. Which means, don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Ok, andiamo avanti. So to do this, let's first review l'articolo indeterminativo, because when you want to memorize the plurals of articles, they follow a pattern. So you want to make sure you understand both indeterminativo, determinativo in the singular, as well as the plural. So we have l'articolo indeterminativo. If it begins with a vowel, if the noun begins with a vowel and it's masculine, we use un. If it's feminine, we use un apostrofo, or un with an apostrophe. Next, if it begins with a zeta, oppure S più un consonante, so a Z or an S plus a consonant, as in the word studente or schermo, or something like this, we would use uno for masculine singular. For femminile, as in studentessa, or the word zucca, we'd use una. Then maschile, if it begins with a consonant, such as libro or computer, we would use un. And the feminine, such as ragazza or sedia, we use una. Okay, andiamo avanti. Oh, and before going ahead, just note that the masculine, another way to remember it might be that masculine is always un, unless it begins with a zeta or S plus a consonant, and the feminine is always una, unless it begins with a vocale, and in that case it's un apostrofo. Okay, al prossimo. L'articolo determinativo, so the definite article. Here we see that the if it begins with a vowel and it's singular, we use the L apostrofo for maschile, and also an L apostrofo for femminile as well. So this would be amico in the masculine, amica in the feminine. The next line, still staying on the singular here, is zeta or S plus a consonant. The masculine is lo and the feminine is la. So in this case it would be lo studente and la studentessa. Okay, the next line we have consonante, il for maschile and la for femminile. Il libro, il computer, in femminile, la ragazza, la sedia. All right, so now that we've reviewed, let's go towards the, let's move and do the plural articles. Maschile, we have yi, if it begins with a vowel. So amico is l'amico in the singular, and the plural would be yi amici. Feminine, we have l'amica in the singular. What would be le amiche in the plural? And here's a little trick here. If you take a look at these, feminine is le for all plurals. So that's one's really easy to memorize. Okay, going further down, we see yi also begins with a zeta or S plus a consonant, which makes it easier as well. Because we can think of all masculines as using a yi, unless they happen to start with a consonant, like libro or like computer. In that case, it'd be I libri or I computer. Otherwise, though, it's going to be yi. So the example with Z could be yi zaini, the backpacks, or yi studenti, the students. Okay, andiamo al prossimo slide. Il plurale dei nomi. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the plural of nouns. In general, nouns are made plural by changing the final vowel. So what we do, if the noun ends in an O, it becomes an E. So O becomes a E or a I in English. A becomes an A, or A becomes an E in English. And A diventa I, or becomes I. So an E becomes an I in English. Diventare, I used the word divente. Diventare means to become. All right, so we have il libro, I libri, la donna, le donne, il giornale, I giornali, the book, the books, the woman, the women, the newspaper, the newspapers. Andiamo al prossimo. And now we're going to talk about some masculine nouns that ended in a. We had, if you remember, we talked about masculine nouns that ended MAI, like problema. we called this an MEA or a masculine A, was the way we remembered that. So if it ends in an MEA or a TA, what happens is the A becomes an E, or an A becomes an I in English. So il problema, I problemi, il poeta, I poeti. All right, well, let's remember our sounds as well, because this is very important for the formation of plurals. We had ka, ko, ga, go, and then with the a and the o sounds. But when we had an I or an E, that changed the sound from a ga to, in the case of an I, a G. So it changes from a hard to a soft G, and the same thing occurs with a C. So how can we preserve that hard sound? We're going to make it plural using an I. And the answer is to stick in an H or an H. So we have il banco becomes I banchi. And remember the ka, ko, chi, ki sound. So if we had that H out of there, it would be I banchi. But we want il banco, hard sound, so we have that H. And the H really, the fact that it starts with an H, and the word hard starts with an H is another way to maybe help you remember that. Okay, let's look at il lago, the lake, I laghi, the lakes. So we need that H. Without the H, it would be I lagi, if it was just a GI or GE in Italiano. Then we have l'amica. L'amica becomes le amiche. And we have to have that H, otherwise it would be le miche, le miche. And we don't want that, we want le amiche. So we're going to stick that H in there to make it plural. And to preserve the sound as well. Okay, andiamo al prossimo slide. Prossimo, what else do we have here? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about stress. We said that in Italian, by default, the stress falls on the penultima syllable, or penultimate, or second to last syllable of the word. But sometimes, if this happens, it's going to change the way if this doesn't happen correctly, it's going to actually change the way the verb ending is. And the verb ending, because it's stressed, right? When you're stressed out, maybe you don't do what you're supposed to do. Well, when these words are stressed out, or the stress falls in a different way, it changes how that ending is. So we have meccanico. Well, the stress doesn't fall on the last syllable, on the second to last syllable rather. The stress falls on the third to last. We have meccanico. Well, it should be really on meccanico is where it should be, but it's not. All right. So it's not meccanici, it's meccanici. Again, the word is the stress is a little different, so the ending is different. Then we have tecnico, tecnici. Again, if the stress were on the second last syllable, it would be tecnici, but it's tecnici. All right. Medico, medici. Okay. The stress is on that. Is not on the second to last. It's on the third to last. It's medico. So it's medici, not medico. Okay, that would be incorrect pronunciation. Then we have simpatico, simpatici, and psicologo, psicologi. So this can happen with verbs that end in CO or a GO, a CO or a GO. We do have a couple exceptions. One exception is amico becomes amici, and nemico becomes nemici. Va bene. Amico, nemico. Well, these ones, the stress is correct, but they have they're irregular in those masculine plurals. Va bene, andiamo avanti, ragazzi. All right. So verbs that end in a consonant, an accented vowel, or an abbreviated noun, they don't change at all, the ending. The articles will change, and that's how you know it's plural, but the endings of those words will not. Il bar becomes I bar. Il caffè, I caffè. And I like to actually think of that accent sign on that last letter, kind of like a little padlock right above there. So you cannot change that letter. Another case is la bici, le bici. Well, why can't we change bici? Because bici is really a parola abbreviata, an abbreviated word for la bicicletta. So la bicicletta becomes le biciclette, fine, but if it's abbreviated, we're cutting that word actually right in half, and we can't change something that falls in the middle of the word. So abbreviated words we just keep alone. Then we have l'autobus becomes gli autobus. Once again, this is an example of a word that ends in a consonant And most words that end in consonants in Italian are words of foreign origin. Okay, andiamo avanti. Well, what else about nouns do we need to know when making them plural? One is that most nouns that end in eo change to e and not ee. We don't double up the i's on these nouns. One I is sufficient enough to get that sound. The only exception would be if something is accented and we need to really emphasize that sound. So our examples are lo stadio, gli stadi. So stadio is accent on the a, stadio. So we don't, one I at the end is enough. But the word zio, with the i's accented here. So we're going to actually add two i's in this case to really emphasize that sound, that z sound. Okay, so going further, we have some feminine endings as well that have some special cases. So we have nouns ending in ia. They're going to retain the I when it's stressed in the singular. Farmacia, we're going to keep that I in there. Farmacia, because we're stressing that I, or that E in Italiano. I or E, right? E is the Italian way of saying it. Then we have spiaggia, spiagge, spiaggia, spiagge. And notice that the I is emphasized in the first part of the word. So we don't need, it's not spiaggie. If it were spiaggie, we'd keep that I at the end of the word. All right, it's just spiagge, spiagge, spiaggia, spiagge. Okay, and contrast that with farmacia, farmacie. Va bene? Ok, andiamo al prossimo. A couple examples we can do for practice. We have la formica. The plural would be le formiche. We're sticking an H at the end of formica, otherwise it'd be le formiche. By the way, la formica means ant, and not the good kind of ant, the ant that comes and ruins your picnic. All right. Then we have la pasticceria, would be la pasticcerie. And yep, you guessed it, you're going to keep that I at the end of the word. Pasticcerie, le pasticcerie, the pastry shops. Next we have la maga, le maghe, and yep, you're putting an H in there after the G to preserve that sound, that hard sound. La striscia, le strisce, le strisce. Here, we don't need to keep that I at the end of the word. Strisce, having the E is good enough because it's a soft sound, and we're not emphasizing the I in that word. It's not striscie, it's striscia. Il clima, I climi. Here we have, this is a masculine word. Remember, MAA, masculine ending. And so the A becomes an E, or an I in English. So, I climi. L'alto becomes le alto. Alto is a parola abbreviata, an abbreviated word for le automobile. So the word itself does not change. However, automobile is feminine. It's a feminine word, and that's something that you would just have to memorize when you get this noun. L'università becomes le università, and the article changes, le, sure, but università, the ending does not. Remember that accent at the end of the word is kind of like a padlock you can think of. The vowels do not change if there's an accent over them. So the word can be plural, but only the article is plural, not the ending. Okay, il cinema becomes I cinema. Remember, cinematographo is the actual word. This is an abbreviated version, so it is masculine, but the ending cannot change because it's an abbreviated word. It's really the middle of the word that we're seeing here. Then we have il negozio, negozio, I negozi, I negozi. This with one I, not emphasized. Lo zio, gli zi. Here we have two I's because zio is heavily emphasized, and we want to preserve that. Next we have la pizzeria, le pizzerie, le pizzerie. Here we have the I and the E at the ending, pizzeria. So because of that emphasis, you do want to keep the I. L'amica, le amiche, with an H, of course, to preserve that sound. Then we have il problema, I problemi, masculine, masculine A, so it's a masculine noun, and the A becomes an I, or an I in Italiano, so I problemi. L'amico, gli amici, This was an irregular one. It does end in an I. Gli amici. Il topo, I topi, I topi. So this is a regular. Il medico, I medici. This ends in an I and does not use an H because it's one that is stressed irregularly. And then we have il canguro, I canguri, regular noun. And il clown, I clown ends in a consonant, so the consonant does not change, the ending does not change. And last we have la birra, le birre. Again, a feminine noun, and there's nothing special going on here, so it just has a typical regular ending, the A going to A. And here are the answers for you to look at. And that's it. So ci vediamo ragazzi, è stato un piacere come sempre. Ci vediamo alla prossima. Ciao.